Welcome to the Kanata Carleton Provincial Election All Candidates meeting. This meeting has been organized and is sponsored by the following community associations: Beaverbrook, Briarbrook, Brookside, and Morgan's Grant, Kanata Lakes, and Arcadia. I'm Christopher Browell with the Kanata Lakes Community Association, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. I'd like to welcome the candidates for this evening: Pat Friel, Green Party; Shahbaz Syed, Liberal Party; Melissa Conrad, NDP. Mary Lee Fullerton of the Progressive Conservative Party was unable to join us this evening due to an existing commitment related to the power outage in her jurisdiction. The goal of this evening is to provide you, the local voters, with an opportunity to see and hear the candidates, to understand who they are, what they bring to the table, and how they will serve Kanata Carleton as our member at Queen's Park. The format of this evening is that all candidates will present opening remarks, followed by their responses to questions and closing remarks. The questions have been compiled from a large number of emails from voters, and the questions tonight will cover several topics for a total of 6 to 8 questions, time permitting. I will introduce the topics and questions after the opening remarks are completed. The order that candidates will speak will change on a rotating basis so that no one candidate is always speaking first or last. Time allowed for each candidate is 3 minutes for opening and closing remarks and 2 minutes for each candidate for each question. Candidates will be warned 30 seconds before the end of their time, and a stop at the end will be provided by our timekeepers. As we have many questions and time is limited, we will not be accepting questions from the audience during the meeting, and our expected completion time is 8:30 p.m. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available online within 48 hours. Without further ado, I'd like to commence the session with the opening remarks, beginning with our first speaker, Melissa Conrad, NDP. Melissa.
Thank you so much. My name is Melissa Conrad, and I am the NDP candidate for Kanata Carleton. I'm asking you to support the NDP in order to elect a government that will work for you and will invest in the services that you need. In Kanata Carleton, voting NDP is the best way to defeat the Ford Conservatives. As a healthcare worker, I experienced this pandemic from the inside and can tell you that we were set up to fail for decades. The Wynne Del Duca Liberals gave us hallway medicine, and the Ford Conservatives were making cuts to critical services before the pandemic. And he didn't want to spend the money to shore up hospital and healthcare in the middle of a crisis. Protecting healthcare workers goes beyond vaccinations and PPE. It means providing adequate staff and supports so that healthcare workers can do their jobs safely and efficiently. Getting the right investments in our healthcare system will help us fix what is broken. The NDP will keep healthcare public, repeal Bill 124, include dental care, pharmacare, and mental health care in OHIP, because we believe that you should only need your OHIP card and not your credit card for medical appointments. There needs to be accountability for the catastrophic events that happened in long-term care. Thousands of lives were lost, and health protocols were not upheld by the current government. The NDP will make long-term care public, not for profit, and ensure inspections and health policies are enforced. As a mother in this pandemic, I watched my son struggle with virtual learning, then in-person learning, and then virtual learning again. The government treated our kids like yo-yos. I watched the stress it caused, and the poor education that was received in the last 2 years was as a result of the government taking $800 million from our kids' education, on top of 15 years of cuts from the Wynne Del Duca Liberals. The NDP will reverse these cuts and commit to smaller class sizes, ensuring social and mental health services are available in all schools. Something local I've heard a lot about in this campaign is protecting the green space in Kanata, in particular, preserving the Golf Links Agreement that was signed many years ago. City Council unanimously adopted a motion calling on the provincial government to step in and preserve these lands to no avail. As MPP for Kanata Carleton, I will work with community groups to obtain a ministerial zoning order and protect these lands as green space as they were originally intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Friel.
Hello, thank you for having us today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming from you today on the unceded land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabes people. To start, I've been living in Kanata since I was born here in 1997. I have 9 years of experience working in customer service and have an education in horticultural industries, environmental studies, and I'm on track to receive my university degree in environmental economics and public policy at the University of Ottawa. I've been volunteering with the Green Party since I was able to vote. I ran as a Green candidate in Ottawa West Nepean against Bob Chiarelli. And in 2019, I was Jennifer Purdy's federal campaign manager, where we worked together with our team to yield a 6.5% share vote, the highest Green vote share in the Ottawa area. I decided to get involved in politics in 2016 when Stephen Harper's government was muzzling scientists and cutting funding to the experimental lakes. It really upset me that politicians were silencing science in order to push forward their agenda at a cost that affects us all. Climate inaction is costing us millions and is set to cost us billions. The 2018 tornado and Saturday's Jericho storm is just the beginning of these extreme weather events resulting from climate change. Our political leaders have not set us up to be climate resilient. So today, I ask you this. Do you want an MPP who is tied by party loyalty and votes to satisfy their leader and back room, or a representative who genuinely wants to build Kanata Carleton into the best place to live, work, and play? I'm running in this election so I can serve my constituency first and my party second. I will make our constituency office a place where no matter your skin color, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious belief, or age, you can have your voice heard regularly. Having lived in Kanata for 25 years, I feel as though I'm pretty in tune with the concerns of the riding, and especially the concerns of young people. As a young gay professional, I believe that I'm able to connect with people from all sorts of different backgrounds and really listen to their stories so we can work on solutions together. For me, it's not about forming government. It's about being a voice in my community so I can fight for the things that are important to you and stand up to whatever government is in power, even a Green government. No matter what party is in power, you can always count on me to be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahbaz Syed.
Hello everyone, bonsoir, good evening. My name is Shahbaz Syed. I'm the Ontario Liberal candidate for Kanata Carleton. I grew up in Pakistan, and after doing my MBA and acquiring international finance qualifications like CFA, FRM, I moved abroad with work. I've worked in several jurisdictions around the world, and my work has took me to places in Europe, in Asia, and North America. And out of the 45 countries that I visited, my wife and I decided, my wife is an early childhood educator, so we decided to choose Canada as our place where we will raise our family. And within Canada, we chose Kanata as a place because of its beauty, because of the green spaces that we all enjoy and care for, and because of the, most importantly, the loving and the caring community that we have here in Kanata. This is why when one day I overheard my daughter speaking with her friends and saying the phrase, whatever, who cares? And that phrase actually got me a little upset. So I sat them down and I said, no, we should not take everything for granted. Canada is a beautiful place with a lot of resources and a lot of opportunities. So we as Canadians should not only take pride in, but at the same time, make sure that we preserve what has been passed on to us by the previous generations, and we work towards making sure that we pass it on to the next generation in the best form. So I am so happy and proud to share with you that Ontario Liberal Platform is a platform which cares. It cares for our seniors. by providing them with support for the long-term care. We have seen what has happened when the neglect and inefficiency encircles a long-term care center. We've seen the tragic deaths in the long-term care center. Like our platform cares for education as a sector because that is the investment that we want. So taking out $10 billion from a highway, which not many will benefit, we will bring it to the education sector, a sector that has been neglected. So we will be channeling investments for new schools and repair old schools. Environment is key for us. We are committed to bring net emissions to zero by 2050 and to bring it down to 50% by 2030, based on 2005 numbers. Within that spirit, Kanata Green Space is key for us. In Kanata, it is something which we all cherish, and this is something which we all are so proud of. So as a party, we are committed to protect the green spaces. We're also committed, and we've already made it public, that we will be committing up to 50% in the LRT extension phase 3. So with that, I think you will probably have enough on our website and through discussions to make an informed and objective decision. I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our opening remarks segment of the session. We'll now proceed to the question period. In past elections, there has been general agreement on the problems underlying issues, but disagreement on how to solve them. Today, there's increasing disagreement on what the issues themselves are and their underlying problems, which leads to different proposed solutions. On each of tonight's questions, which will range from the economy, planning and development, healthcare, education, and climate, we'd ask the candidates to explain their understanding of the issues and what they will do in this riding to address them. Again, we'll proceed with responses in a rotating fashion. And the first question relates to the topic of inflation. What is your understanding of the source of inflation in Ontario, and what can and will you do to minimize the impact? I'd ask Pat Friel to answer the first. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question. It's a great question. My understanding of inflation as it is today is that government spending leading into the pandemic was so high that we didn't really have the appropriate funds to fund the programs that the federal government were proposing in order to mitigate the damage from COVID-19. So using quantitative easing, the government was selling government bonds in order to, create cash and wealth that we could use to fund programs like CERB and the business support programs. And as a result, the increase in government expenditure, along with the low unemployment, started to, kind of mess with prices. And, the Bank of Canada did the best thing they could to manage inflation. And right now, with the rising interest rates, they are taking the appropriate steps to deal with the increasing employment following reopening the lockdowns, and to kind of cool the economy and to help bring inflation down. But ultimately, gas prices have also played a huge part in inflation. But there are more factors contributing to the increase in gas prices that extend beyond COVID measures, that extend beyond carbon taxes. And I think it's just a huge indication that we as a people need to move away from our dependence on gasoline. But what the Green Party is proposing to make life more affordable for people is to increase the amount of services that are being offered by the public sector. So, we are proposing implementing things like a housing speculation tax, a wealth tax, and increasing parts of the carbon tax. That we want to take over the federal administration of the carbon tax and implement a more efficient carbon tax at the provincial level. So not only can we shift people away from depending on gas so much, but using the wealth tax and the speculation tax help fund initiatives that will bring us things like dental care, pharmacare, mental health programs for people. And those are the initiatives we're kind of putting forward to help make life more affordable for people in Ontario.
Thank you. Next, Shahbaz Syed.
Thank you. I think most of us do understand too much money chasing too few goods is what causes inflation. But I think we have also come out of one of probably the black swan events of our economic history. Pandemic was something which nobody planned for. So coming out of this and going into probably a more secure and more stronger economy requires some meaningful steps to be taken by the government. The life of ordinary Canadian at the moment, especially in Ontario, is affected by high cost of living. And that is something which is some part of that will be in our control and is in our control. And part of this is not in our control. As a trading nation, we trade with many countries around the world, of course, most importantly, south of border. So the supply chains have been affected. A container of equipment or let's say of commodities that was being brought in or out of Canada, that cost has gone 4 times. So containers have been less of containers. There's a lot of activity that has stopped in the international trade market, and that has been affecting the input prices in Canada, and this is also affecting our export potential. So with that, the factors which are let's say out of our scope, I think there are federal mandates that are affecting those, and we'll be working on those. But as a provincial government, we have made it a point that we will try and make life of an average Ontarian affordable. We have 19-point agenda in our platform that covers so many aspects of our ordinary lives. For example, $1 transit is not only going to put back several $100 back into your pocket. I personally have taken buses 63 and 64, and I know paying $300, almost more than that, for bus passes, causes some of that, cost increase. So we also are working on ensuring that average meal price less than $20 is not subject to provincial tax. That will save cost as well.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. Yeah, there is many different factors that cause inflation and contribute to inflation, and they've been spoken about already. And I think part of making life more affordable and really mitigating the inflation that we're currently in is really putting steps in place that will put money back in people's pocket to give them money to give back to the economy and to be able to afford their bills as a bare minimum. So one of the big things that we're going to do is direct the Ontario Energy Board to regulate the retail price and wholesale markup of gas to stop greedy oil companies from gouging Ontarians. We'll ensure prices are fair, stable, and competitive, regardless of where in the province you live. We're going to bring dental care, mental health care, and pharmacare into OHIP. So those are things you don't have to pay for as a family any longer. We will ensure that $10 a day care is implemented and ensure that there are enough spaces available because there is a province-wide shortage currently. We'll put in place rent control and end rent evictions so people are not kicked out of their homes. We will get, we're going to plan to go back to funding 50% of transit costs, operation costs for municipalities. That used to be in place. We want to go back to that so that municipalities can lessen fares for transit, especially in a time when gas prices are so high. We want a fully funded autism program so families don't have to pay out of pocket for autism care. We're going to offer small business grants and increase the carbon tax to the biggest emitters. We also want to implement a wealth tax to offset the cost of these programs and ensure that every family has money to pay all of their bills. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next question on the topic of seniors' care. The last 2 years have exposed issues in public long-term care, including the release of 2 public inquiries in less than 3 years. What is your understanding of the underlying problems facing the system, and how will you address them in Kanata Carleton? And we begin with Shahbaz Syed.
Thank you for that question. This is an important question. I have my aging parents, and they're far away, so I really relate to the anxiety that we have when we are caring for our seniors. And because of the fact that they have worked so hard in their past, so it is now our time to do the favor and work and basically care for them. Ontario Liberal policy is very clear on separating the profit and the care part. So we will be ending the for-profit long-term care. One of the things that we have seen in the past through the negligence in the long-term care center, the tragedies that have happened, and not only the tragedies have happened, there was the inspection to make sure that the quality is assured and the basic service standard is ensured. Inspections were also not done. So as we will be bringing back the inspections, we will also be working on ensuring that the personal support workers who work in long-term care centers are compensated adequately. So we're raising the minimum wage to $25 per hour. Moreover, we are also cognizant of the fact that our seniors would like to age with dignity at places of their comfort, at their homes or other places which they are comfortable, again taking into account some of the cultural sensitivities. So we are very supportive of making sure that seniors are able to age at home with dignity. And also we have long-term care center, which is not for profit, but focuses on the care part. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. Yeah, this is one of the biggest concerns that I'm hearing at the doors is what are we going to do about long-term care? How are we going to fix the issues in long-term care? How are we going to make more available? And how are we going to keep our loved ones at home longer? So the first thing we have to do is take profit out. We know that, well, loved ones were not being cared for. Billions of dollars in dividends were being paid out to stakeholders. So we want to implement a minimum standard of care in long-term care. We need more training. We need more PSWs, but we need them to be appropriately trained for Alzheimer's and dementia and sensitivity care for our LGBTQ elders. We need to make sure we have cultural opportunities available for language and prayer and food needs for all the different cultures that are out there, because people wait years and years just to get into specific culture care homes. We need to make sure we have infection control specialists in every home, and we have to make sure that we are doing inspections. In the last few years, the number of homes being inspected by the regulation went down to as few as 8. Only 8 homes in the entire province were inspected prior to the catastrophic events that happened. But we also know that people want to keep their loved ones at home, and we want to give them that opportunity. We know that seniors fare far better at home with mental health and being on fewer medications. So we want to make sure that that is available. We're going to offer a safe at home grant so people can retrofit their homes and keep their loved ones at home. We're going to offer a caregiver benefit program so that caregivers can be paid to stay at home with loved ones, family members, to care for them for as long as they can. We also want to prioritize pod style homes using the butterfly effect instead of institutional style homes, because where these have been built in Ontario, it is proven that the residents in the homes are on far fewer medications. They eat healthier meals. They eat around smaller dining tables in family style pods with the same people, full-time PSWs and nurses, so they encounter the same caregivers every single day of the week, which just adds to the safety and security that the members feel. It also adds to the loved ones being able to get in contact with the caregivers and say what's happening this week and get a firm answer instead of an I don't know, which is reassuring for both the residents and the families involved.
Thank you. Pat Friel.
Thank you. It's a great question. And honestly, it's the question that Dr. Fullerton is avoiding vehemently during this election campaign. I think at this point, it's very clear that the Ontario PC party never had a plan for seniors until COVID-19 exposed them to the bone. We need to define the respective roles of the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Long-Term Care in addressing health emergencies and ensure the safety of long-term care patients. But we have to act now. I personally believe that we should be prioritizing healthy and local food as an important component of resident well-being. And I think this is something that's a realistic goal Kanata Carleton can achieve. We have many farmers and community gardeners that I think would be very on board and participating in a program like this that provides our seniors with fresh local foods that will help them improve their nutrition. I believe me and the Green Party, we believe in investing in holistic care so seniors can choose to age comfortably in their homes or in homes that are culturally appropriate for them by strengthening the obligations for care licensees to respect and recognize gender identity, social, cultural, spiritual, and language care needs. I think that also includes, particularly in Ottawa, investing in French services for French care homes. We've seen the Doug Ford administration attack French language in Ontario, and I think that's just so inappropriate. I will fight. I think an important part in our plan for seniors too is to continue to advocate to repeal Bill 124 and to invest in healthcare providers by setting the minimum wage for personal care workers to $25 an hour. I believe that we should move away from for-profit care systems and increase high-quality home care for people experiencing frailty, dementia, and disability. And on the topic of disability, I think folks, not only seniors, but folks suffering from disability at all ages would benefit greatly from the Green Party's proposal to double ODSP immediately.
Thank you. Now move to question number 3 related to general health care. The strain of the pandemic has exposed the weakness of our current healthcare system, featuring stressed and disaffected health professionals, much longer waiting times for virtually every level of healthcare, including delays in access to treatment, which impacts patients' short and long-term health. What is your understanding of the root causes of this problem, and how do you plan to address them here in Kanata Carleton? The first question goes to Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. That is a fantastic question. What has caused our current situation is decades of underfunding and cuts. Both the Conservative and Liberal governments have made large cuts to healthcare. The Liberal government was in power for 15 years, and it was cuts after cuts, and they gave us hallway medicine, and the current government cut billions of dollars from healthcare, and I'm not sure how we are expected to have any efficient services when we don't have staff and we don't have equipment. We need to stop privatizing our healthcare, because all it does is draw healthcare workers out of the public system, puts them in the private system where they can make more money with better hours and less complex cases, leaving the rest of us who can't pay for it without services or with longer wait times. We need to invest in our children's hospitals. Children are currently waiting longer for care and services than adults. It is shameful. It is beyond the recommended wait times. CHEO and Hamilton Hospital have put together a Kids Come First platform, and everyone should look it up and read it, because kids shouldn't have to wait for surgeries for mobility. They shouldn't have to wait for surgeries in developmental years, because it could be irreversible if we pass those wait times, and we're currently doubling those wait times for children. We need to invest in repealing Bill 124. As a healthcare worker, I was impacted by Bill 124, and I myself during the pandemic had to work 18 days in a row because there was no one else to work, and COVID testing had to happen. I didn't have a choice. We are regulated under the HILDA Act. We have to be at work. We can be mandated to be at work, which is why we have such extreme burnout in healthcare, because 18 days in a row is a lot of working, especially when it's 10-hour shifts. So we have a lot to do in healthcare. We need to, the NDP wants to train internationally trained physicians and nurses to immediately help with the backlog that we have so that everyone can have a family physician, because we know that we only are currently graduating so many physicians and nurses every single year. And if we don't do something to increase that number, we will be in an even larger crisis than we are in right now. We need to better the workplace. We need to address the violence in the workplace and healthcare. That is still a large number of people that are off work after being attacked at work. We need to make sure that people want to go into healthcare and that we make it a safe space for them to adequately do their job in this province.
Thank you, Melissa. Pat Friel, your response.
Thank you very much. So just to kind of scratch the surface of this issue, I believe, again, in fighting very hard to repeal Bill 124 and pay our nurses a minimum $35 minimum wage to improve their benefits and also attract healthcare workers back to Ontario so we can staff Ontario healthcare beds. It's great that the Ontario PCs are proposing building all these new hospitals, but what good are these new hospitals if we don't have the staff to man the beds? So I think we really need to focus on repairing the state of work environment that healthcare workers currently work in. But at a deeper level, I think we as a society really need to advocate for more preventative healthcare and living healthy lifestyles to really reduce the burden on our healthcare system. I truly see a version of healthcare in Kanata Carleton where people are encouraged to be healthy, eat healthy, and exercise more in a clean environment. I think we need to be spending a little less money on treating sickness and more money on being healthy. I've seen incredible articles on the idea of food prescriptions to help people, guide them through healthier diets. And I think these prescriptions could be used similarly to engage people in physical fitness. I think we can get through future epidemics better if we're as healthy as we can be, and we should be rewarding doctors for keeping us healthy and not just for treating us when we're sick. We can work towards this idea further by investing in preventative healthcare and supporting local nutritious food producers. I will also personally advocate to reduce the costs on folks who are trying to maintain physical health by pitching the idea of some sort of tax incentive on activities such as recreational sports or fitness memberships.
Thank you. Shahbaz Syed.
So one of the reasons I decided, as a family, we decided to move to Canada was the healthcare sector and the healthcare system that we have. Although over the years I've seen deterioration in that, but that still remains as one of the key services that we need, especially with population aging and with population increasing. The healthcare needs that we have as Ontarians, as Canadians, are increasing every day. Therefore, and then we saw in pandemic that most of the healthcare workers were burnt out. So we're really, highly appreciative of the hard work that they've done, and the burnt out that they felt and the underpaid that they felt has to be corrected. So Ontario Liberals are committed to repeal Bill 124, which is not right, which a bill which actually, takes away their ability to negotiate fair pay. So we will repeal that bill. Secondly, when I've gone to thousands of doors over the last few months, one thing which comes out, in quite a regular fashion is the lack of family doctors. And that is something which is affecting not only us in Kanata, but in wider Ontario as well. We know that Canada is beautiful, but we have probably not been able to position our riding that way so that we can attract talent from around Canada, around Ontario. And we also know for a fact that there are the thousands of healthcare workers, doctors and nurses who have international qualifications, but they have not been able to get their credentials accredited in Canada. So we will have to address the supply side of the human resource to healthcare by making sure that we have the right kind of human resource to basically fill positions in healthcare, not only in the current phase, but also in terms of the growing population that we have. We have plans of hiring 100,000 nurses, doctors, and healthcare workers if we are able to form government. We are also looking at clearing the surgical backlog with $1 billion worth of investment in healthcare sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 4 relates to the climate crisis. Kanata Carleton has experienced increasing weather-related emergencies as we've recently witnessed, including severe floods and windstorms, not the least of which this past weekend in Ottawa, as I mentioned. What is your understanding of the root causes of this problem, and how do you plan to address them here in Kanata Carleton? First question will go to Pat Frio.
How appropriate. Well, to begin, the climate crisis is a result of really free market economics. We've been totally incentivizing businesses to make as much money as possible by, as Doug Ford loves to say, cutting red tape. But the bottom line is red tape is not legislation that protects our wetlands, our forests, and our farmlands. We need real leadership when it comes to climate change. We can't just let polluters pollute and not hold them to account, because we can see like the consequences of this. Like 8 people died from this storm. And I have never in my 25 years of life seen a storm like this. Even in the tornado in Dunrobin, we're not supposed to be getting tornadoes in Ottawa. It's not really, it doesn't make sense. The climate is changing. There's no denying it at this point. And there are really simple ways that we can really combat our greenhouse gas emissions. And the most impactful thing we can do is to better manage our food waste. We need to ban our food waste from landfills and incinerators and expand food waste collection to all municipalities across the province. We also need to set targets to significantly reduce Ontario's material consumption and track and report on this progress. I think also we need to consider replacing GDP as a key metric of government success and consider instead an index of well-being to better measure societal progress, economic and environmental well-being, and people's quality of life. I think this system will really help to inform governments better on how their money is being spent and the results that are being produced from this spending. I'm committed to permanently protecting our wetlands, forests, and farmland. I think we need to be including farmers in the discussion on how to better protect their farmland. And we lose a tremendous amount of this farmland to development and poor road infrastructure. I think we can be really taking advantage of the wasted real estate space we have in rooftops. And instead of, converting our farmland into solar farms, we should be converting the roof spaces on big box stores into solar farms. There's a great example of this, the Home Depot across from Kanata Centrum on Terry Fox. They have solar panels on their roof. And I can only imagine what kind of benefit solar panels would have on the rooftops of grocery stores should these extreme weather events continue. We have simple solutions to these climate problems, and we just need the political will to do it. And I'm committed to fighting to achieve these solutions.
Thank you. Shahbaz Syed, your response.
I think the debate around whether climate change is happening or not, I think we're far from that. I think science and research has proven that this is real. This is daunting, and this is affecting not only Canada, it is basically affecting the entire world. In Canada, of course, when we talk about protecting our environment, that is at all levels of government. But on the provincial level, we are committing, through our, fully costed platform, that we are taking some key measures which will definitely help the environment. For example, our $1 transit is expected to pull off almost 400,000 cars a day from the roads, which will have a great impact on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. Secondly, we are putting in, as you recall, when the current government came in, they just basically dismantled all the infrastructure that was put in place to have electric vehicles, the charging facilities and all those stations. Those were dismantled and the rebates were taken back. We are bringing in, again, support for the electric cars. So we are renewing we will be renewing the electric car rebates, hopefully incentivizing people to go for electric cars. Moreover, we have seen the impact that highways and infrastructure. So the highways or infrastructure are important, but they cannot be at the cost of environment. That is why when we are cancelling the 4113 highway project, the funding goes to education. At the same time, it saves our wetlands, it saves our green belt, and we're also increasing from 10% to 30% the protected land. And finally, we will be committing to basically seed 800 million new trees during the next 8 years. So with all these measures, we are hopeful that we will be able to bring down the net emissions to 50% from 2005 levels by 2030 and by net zero by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. I'll start by saying that we need to start right now. If we don't start now, we're never going to get anywhere. Every government comes out and says they're going to invest, and they don't. And so we have to start right now. And an NDP government would start with retrofitting their own buildings, their own fleet of vehicles, because we know we have to lead by example, and that will have a big impact to zero emissions. We also need to, we're going to offer incentive programs between $7,000 and $11,000 per home. If you want to change out your furnace, get solar panels, whatever you want to do to make your home a more green friendly home, we are going to help you with that as best as we can. We need to invest in mitigating future devastation in our rural areas, in our urban areas with flood protection. Out in our rural areas, I met with a whole bunch of them out there where their road was completely blocked off by floodwaters, and for $300,000 we could raise their road so that never happens again. And the current government didn't invest in that for some reason, leaving people completely stranded in their time of need. We need to invest in these kinds of things. But further to that, we need to have resilience, and we need to have a stress test on all structures being built to make sure that they are structurally sound for future windstorms like the one that just happened. We're going to connect with the provincial insurance companies, with the Insurance Bureau of Canada, who I met with, and just asked, what can we do for flood victims? What can we do for what they call act of God circumstances in insurance? How can we ensure people have coverage so they can rebuild and get back into their homes in safer homes, and shore them up for resilience and make them greener? And it is possible. They are working on that right now. And the NDP would work with them to make sure in areas like Kanata, Carleton, that specific insurance was available and that those bursaries were available to fix their homes. We need to eliminate plastics. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that everyone has clean drinking water, which they don't currently have in Ontario, which is shameful. And that way we don't need to be shipping thousands of tons of plastic bottles to rural and Indigenous areas so that they can have clean drinking water. We need to make sure our waterways are clean, stay clean. We would propose a youth climate corp, which would be for youths in Ontario in the summers to get hands-on skills and experience while cleaning up our wetlands and landscapes and earning a decent wage and getting an education at the same time. So there's a lot of things we need to do here in Ontario. There's a lot of things we can do, and there's a lot that the NDP is going to do.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. Question number 5 focuses on planning and development, particularly as it relates to the Club Link development proposal. Perhaps the most contentious issue in Kanata North, the city is waiting for dialogue with the Minister of Housing, Steve Clark, to address unanimous motion for City Hall for provincial involvement in the Club Link proposal for the Kanata Golf Club green space. What is your understanding of this issue? What specific actions would you take to ensure Club Link is blocked from development as they were for Glen Abbey? Shahbaz Syed.
This certainly is an important issue for our riding. And I'm baffled at why the incumbent was unable to work out the same solution that was accorded to Glen Abbey. So I think words do speak sometimes louder than actions. Although actions should be speaking louder than words. But the issue is quite complex, but it is very important for our residents. And I've had a chance of engaging with a number of residents and also the Green Space Coalition as well. Not only that it defeats from the legal point of view, it defeats the the raison d'etre, when the agreement was signed with 40%, if we just do not, if we do not cater for that, if we do not honor that, that sets a bad precedent for future agreements. And actually, when we are trying to position Kanata as a center for live, work, and play, and we have a legal precedent where we are kind of going counter to that, then this will not bid well for the future residents of Kanata. Moreover, it also has great environmental impact. The drainage through the Kizel Channel onto the Ottawa River is going to be a huge issue. And we've also been told that this is an old golf course. So when the development work starts, of course, this is going to impact the life of people living around that area, and probably the mercury that comes over, if it gets airborne because of the development, is going to cause health hazards as well. So there are a number of reasons that why this development should be stopped. So I am fully on board with what Mayor Jim Watson has requested the provincial government to do, and I will work with the provincial government and champion the cause by making sure that whatever tools are available, we are able to do them. For example, the full environmental impact study, and full consultation with the community. That are some of the prerequisites that the mayor is requesting. Also, the action by the provincial government to intervene. So I will work with the community and all stakeholders at the municipal level and at the community level to make sure that we use all tools available to stop that development. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. We need a ministerial zoning order. It's been unanimously voted on by City Council. It's been requested by the city. That's what there's public pressure is what caused it to stay as a golf course in Glen Abbey. Having said that, public pressure doesn't seem to be enough here, so we need a ministerial zoning order. I know that it's not something that most municipalities want. It's not often what they ask for, but when they do, the provincial government needs to come through for the residents, because this is a precedent-setting situation here in Kanata Carleton. We have another green space just like ours in Nepean that is in the same situation, doesn't have the 40% agreement in perpetuity, but it is something that if it happens here in Kanata, it's going to start happening all over the province, and the government needs to be mindful of that, and they need to make sure that these lands, as they start blasting these lands and the minerals come out of the lands into the air, you can have big environmental and health effects. You can have fracturing of foundations that then will show up years later, which causes negative impact to the residents and the homeowners. Storm drainage that's here specifically in Kanata that will be affected, and you could have flooding because the homes were built and the landscape was built in a way to have the storm water in place and to have that green space in place. It is a very rocky space, and it will be extremely detrimental to the homes around it. We also need to keep in mind that if we're going to allow a developer to break a contract, then what does contracts mean in Kanata? What can be upheld if not a signed contract in perpetuity? So I would advocate for an MZO 100% in this case, because that's what needs to happen so that the residents they've spent over $250,000 in legal fees from donations already to fight off these developers. And that's not where their money should be spent. They should be keeping that money in their pockets for their families to pay their bills and not stressing about what's going to be built in their backyard.
Thank you, Melissa. Pat Freer.
So it's no secret that the Doug Ford government is a real big fan of using ministerial zoning orders to support their developer donors. And in 2021, actually, Mike Schreiner in Guelph was a huge advocate to prevent the development of a certain wetland in Guelph. Developers wanted to turn it into a quarry, and there was huge pushback from the community to turn this place into a quarry. And with naturally, it's a beautiful green space that provides critical natural infrastructure to the area and acts as a really important carbon sink. And I think this situation can be, mirrored quite beautifully in Kanata Carleton. It's very obvious that the residents of Kanata North don't want to see this green space lost to development. I think the plans that are being put in place are absolutely reckless, and they're just they're there to make the developers the most amount of money and golf links the most amount of money off of a space that's not making them any money anymore. And I think there needs to be a ministerial zoning order put in place that Doug Ford and oh my gosh, excuse me, Mary Fullerton are far too hesitant to put in place because they care more about their party agenda and what their donors want. So yes, I agree with Melissa. There needs to be a ministerial zoning order put in place to preserve this green space. I would argue that instead of protecting the 40%, we should bump it up to 50% given the circumstances facing the climate. And I think this area presents a really unique opportunity to provide Indigenous reconciliation. I think we can turn this place into parks that acknowledge Indigenous culture, Algonquin and Anishinaabe culture, and have it be really like a meditative area where people can go, where they can learn and reflect and contribute to their mental health and preserve the ecosystem in the area.
Thank you. Question number 6 relates to the Kanata North Park. Have we said, we're moving on to question number 6 now, related to the Kanata North Tech Park. Kanata North Tech Park is competing globally to attract an additional 30,000 highly skilled and paid workers for the exploding opportunity in the 5G tech sector. High quality of life and green space are major selling factors to those who relocate to Kanata North. What will you do to ensure that this doubling of tech park employees will see investment in provincially controlled and funded infrastructure to ensure the tech park's 540 companies can deliver economic growth for Ontario and Kanata? Melissa Conrad can begin.
Thank you. Yes, we are all very proud of the high-tech park that is here, and we're drawing people from all over the world to come and work here. And the green space is part of it. We know that people want to live in Kanata for the green space that we have, and we need to make sure that we maintain it as a draw for people to come here, because people have options all over the world when it comes to high-tech. And I think that there's a lot of things that are going to change moving forward in industry and training. We have training plans to help workers succeed in our low carbon future, which is going to create jobs. We're going to work with universities, colleges, unions, employers to fast track workers with individual experience and provide tuition grants for programs geared towards supporting net zero technology. And part of our Green New Deal is an energy retrofit program that will create 100,000 good jobs through retrofitting 5% of Ontario buildings each year to save money and to cut emissions. And all of that will create jobs. And we're looking for innovative high-tech industries to help us with these retrofits and help us with zero emissions technologies. We want to invest in share and cap and trade revenues into programs and technology to support net zero emissions for companies to help them retrofit and expand their own technologies. Our plan to reach net zero by 2050 will invest in new technologies to help achieve this. We have a lot of opportunity in our high-tech sector to expand and develop. And I think that one of the main things that we have to do is offer housing that doesn't sprawl out and take up the green space. We need to have dense housing around LRT stations, around in neighborhoods that are already built and already are paved over, if you will. We need to look at buildings that are vacant and spaces that are available to build up instead of building out. We need to make sure that in Kanata, if people don't want to live in Kanata, that we have the LRT coming all the way out to Kanata and to the high-tech park so that people can have zero emissions transit from wherever in Ottawa they choose to live. Have it available, have it reliable, have it functioning in all weathers, and have it affordable for them to be able to move to Ottawa, hopefully move to Kanata, but if not, be able to get to their workplace without having to drive. And then we can also have less parking spaces because people can take transit.
Thank you, Melissa. Pat Friel.
Thank you. It's a really good question. And I think Kanata's tech park can be real global leaders in establishing the green economy in Ontario. I know the University of Ottawa is planning to, if not already, has established a campus in Kanata North. And I think that creates enormous opportunities to attract investment and attract jobs and new students to Kanata. And the Green Party has a plan to provide tuition grants to students who are learning in trades and in education that bolsters the green economy. And I had a meeting with the Ottawa Jewish Federation the other week, and they had talked about what are you going to do to create opportunities for investment between Ontario and Israel. And I think Kanata North has a huge opportunity for that. Israel is a global leader in technology and innovation and research, and so I think if we support our Kanata North, we can draw business investments from all over the world. And I as a Green MPP, it'll be my job to make sure that we're passing legislation that is cost effective and provides critical services, and most importantly, attracts investment to our tech center in Kanata Carleton.
Thank you. Shabazz Syed.
So Kanata North definitely is a jewel in the crown. So we have almost 23,000 to 24,000 high-skilled workers already working here. More than 500 companies that operate out of Kanata are contributing almost 13 billion and plus to the national GDP. So this is really a prized asset that we have, not only for Kanata, but actually we should take pride that this Kanata North of ours, or the high-tech park that we have, is well positioned to become a leader for Ontario and for Canada. And as a person of investment and finance, I've seen that happening in places in Asia and Africa with the right mix of infrastructure, incentives, policy, and stakeholder alignment. Those places have basically, exploded with investments and opportunities. So we do have that opportunity here at our hand. And what we need to do, we need to make sure that we are able to align all the stakeholders, and they should work together to make that happen. Our party has already committed that we will be funding up to 50% of the LRT Stage 3 extension, which of course will help have cleaner transit to Kanata and from Kanata. In addition, we are also looking at bringing one thing which Ontario Liberal Party has done over the last 4 months is that we've had extensive consultations with various stakeholders. I personally managed to arrange a meeting between KNBA, Ottawa U, and our economy and labor squad, where we're trying to understand the requirements of the KNBA and our university in ensuring that we have the supply of highly talented individuals coming into Kanata. And of course, housing will be a key for that. To develop housing which is sustainable, which is green, and of course, which does not take out our differentiating factor in terms of housing the green spaces around us. So I will be using my finance and risk management experience from various locations to make sure that we bring everyone on table. Bring everyone on table and make sure that we are able to position Kanata North the way it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to question 7 on the topic of affordability. Provincial policies direct Ontario cities on planning and development. What is your understanding of the problems of affordability, and how will you address that in Kanata Carleton? We begin with Pat Friel.
Thanks for the question. I think we kind of touched on this a little earlier, so forgive me if I'm repeating some of my points. But I think one of the biggest contributions that the Green Party is putting forward towards affordability is addressing the $7 billion in energy subsidies that the province dishes out to households. There are wealthy households that benefit from this subsidy that I think the Green Party is proposing we relinquish these subsidies for and reinvest that back into energy efficient retrofits for homes to help make people's energy bills more affordable, and maintaining these subsidies for low-income households. Again, we've proposed to implement things like a wealth tax, a multi-home speculation tax, and changes to the carbon tax to provide additional revenue to the province to provide services for folks so they can benefit from things like dental care, pharmacare, mental health services, and much more. Yeah, it's hard to really go much further without repeating what I feel like we've said earlier. But I think the bottom line is that realistically, we need to really tackle the climate crisis with all we've got. And when we adopt this mentality and work towards building the green economy, we can unleash so much economic power that will help make life truly more affordable for everyone. You know, we can make sure that our seniors are aging in dignity and that everyone has healthcare. We can make sure that our communities are economically prosperous and that everyone has a safe, affordable home to put over their heads. And we can make sure that we're leaving a livable future for our children. So in terms of dealing with affordability, I think the province needs to truly throw itself head on into the climate crisis and do everything it can to push forward the green economy and create green jobs.
Thank you. Shahbaz Syed, your response.
So while we've touched on the other affordability elements from our platform, I will touch mostly on the housing affordability. I am a father of four, yet two of my children are already going to university. And I'm seeing this increasingly becoming increasingly difficult for them to just muster the down payment. So I think that is a crisis that is affecting many people, especially the young people and also the first-time home buyers. And that is why Ontario Liberal Platform speaks of creating an all-new Ontario Housing Corporation, the purpose of which would be to help us get those 1.5 million homes into the next 10 years and providing an opportunity for the first-time home buyers to buy a new home. That is an aggressive, commitment, and I hope with the backlog that we have and the demand and supply imbalance that we currently see, if you may be aware that Ontario basically faced least in G7 when it comes to house per thousand. So we are at almost 400 houses per thousand, which is least amongst the G7 member countries. So housing starts the new housing through that new housing, the Ontario Housing Corporation, and facilitating some of the debt space that is already there, which city or the provincial government was opening it up for making sure that we are able to develop new housing. And for Ottawa itself, we will be working on 10,000 new affordable homes. So when we talk of housing, it has to be a spectrum or a continuum of housing, from subsidized housing, from affordable housing to market-based housing, smaller and larger for everyone, so that everyone who likes to live in Canada, and that is what Canada offers, the beauty and the serene and the landscape, everyone is able to afford a house. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be done for affordability in Ontario. We've touched on many of them already. Affordable childcare, bringing dental care and mental health care into OHIP so people don't have to pay for it, fully funded autism program, housing is part of it. The NDP is going to offer first-time home buyers their 10% down payment so they can get into homes sooner, because many people are realizing that they're being turned down for mortgages that would only cost them $1,000 a month, but they're being forced to pay rent that's costing them $2,000 or $2,500 a month. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The system is extremely broken. We want to get people into homes. Social assistance needs to be increased. People on ODSP are 40% below the poverty line right now. They can't even afford their bills. They're asking the government to increase it. We're going to increase it by 20% immediately, and then double it in our second year and indexed thereafter to bring people right up out of poverty so they can give back into the economy, pay their bills, and have a little left over to go out for dinner. We're going to raise minimum wage by $1 a year every single year until it gets to $20 by 2026 to make sure that people are further brought out of poverty, because minimum wage puts people in poverty right now. We're going to make sure that transit is available to everyone by paying 50% of the operating costs for municipalities so that transit fares can be lowered all across the province. We're going to fix the broken insurance system, because you shouldn't have to pay insurance double what other people do depending on what your postal code is. What we would call postal code discrimination, because 2 neighborhoods over, it could be half the price. We want to fix for seniors, it's extremely unaffordable for seniors to live right now. And so we want to offer them a tax deferral program that allows seniors to not pay their taxes, and we'll cover that for them. And then they can pay us back whenever they happen to sell their home. But they can live out
20 seconds.
They can live out their life in dignity in their home for as long as possible, on top of the retrofits that we're willing to offer them to stay at home for as long as possible, and the caregiver grants to have loved ones help them stay there.
Thank you. We now move to our 8th and final topic, which is education. Not unlike healthcare, the pandemic has exposed issues with staffing, remote versus in-class education, plus a longer-term trend away from in-community schools. Parents are not happy. Colleges and universities continue to report dealing with students poorly prepared for post-secondary education. What is your understanding of the underlying issues to these problems? What will your party do to ensure that education produces a well-educated workforce that attracts employers and investment for Kanata Carleton? We begin with Shahbaz Syed. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I started my career as a teacher, and I've always believed in the power of education to transform lives. Actually, I'm a manifestation of that example. I started in a rural setting in Pakistan, traveled the world through, I think education was one of the main reasons that I was able to do that. And more so, I wanted the same opportunity for my kids as well. And that is why when I moved to Canada, I made sure that we settle in a place where our children are able to get the best education. And education is good in Canada, but I think over the years, we've seen some frustration, and pandemic, of course, played its own role. We have seen the struggle, personally, firsthand, with online learning. My wife being an ECE was unable to work outside because she had to take care of our youngest son as well. So I've seen the challenges of online learning. I've seen how frustrated teachers have been. Sometimes they've been actually teaching to blank screens. And I think we've seen in our lives, if we are not responded well when we're speaking, I think the motivation really goes out. We have seen the burnout that teachers have faced and how less appreciated they have been. The class size that basically sets the tone for fund allocation, for policy setting, is something we are happy to share that we will be bringing the class size to 20 students per class, which will ensure that the classes are rightly sized and the students get the right kind of attention. We have plans to hire 10,000 new teachers, which will basically reduce the gap that we currently have. And as I already mentioned in my earlier remarks, we will be able to channel the 10 billion investment from the ill-conceived highway into the investment of future, which is education, so that we have fully functional schools, we have fully ventilated schools, and we also are introducing grade 13. Especially because of pandemic, we see some of our youngsters, as they prepare for the universities, they need some more time to adjust and make sure that what they plan to do in future is right for them. So we are introducing grade 13 to help with that. Also, the mental stress that students and teachers had in schools is tremendous. We are introducing, basically 5,000 new mental health workers for the school. So every school will have at least a psychological or a mental, health worker, so that they can work towards bringing this mental stress and stress down and mental health up in schools. With all these measures, I believe education will receive the right kind of investment so that it is positioned for longer term sustainable, for longer term growth, and finally makes Ontario a place where this education system is best in class, as we used to take pride a few years back. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad, your response.
Thank you. Yeah, the pandemic really highlighted how fractured our education system is. But it doesn't help when we've had decades of funding cuts. The Ford government cut $800 million from education before the pandemic hit, and now has another $1.2 billion of cuts on the books. That's $2 billion in a 4-year term cut from education, and expecting us to offer world-class education to our students. The Wendell Duca Liberals had 15 years to fix our education system, and instead they increased the classroom sizes. They are recommending 20 students per class right now, and I've spoken to teachers unions who have said it's absolutely not possible given the physical structures of schools. There literally isn't enough space to do that. So that is just a wish at this point. The NDP will fix what's broken in our education system. We will reverse the Ford government cuts. We'll fix the education funding formula because it is very broken right now. Reduce class sizes. Ensure there are social, mental health supports in every school. Currently, for guidance counselors in school, it's approximately 1 guidance counselor for 500 students. That guidance counselor will not even have the capacity to meet every student they are supposed to be helping. We'll cancel the damaging EQAO program that costs billions to run and put that money back in to the $15.8 billion worth of structural backlogs that the decades of previous governments have built up by not funding those fixes. We will base special education funding on actual needs instead of a formula. We will continue the long overdue work of ending streaming so that no student is put at a disadvantage due to systemic racism, and every student can succeed. We're going to create amendments to set out clear, consistent definitions of racism and anti-racism so that students can learn from young how to treat everyone as they grow up. There is a lot that needs to be done in our schools, and I've spoken to teachers, educators, and custodians, maintenance staff who feel like they're being set up to fail. They're feeling like they struggle every day to go to work because they cannot offer our students the best that they deserve. And they feel like they owe our students and our families more. And we know that that isn't true. We know that the system is extremely broken, and that's what we plan to fix.
Thank you. And Pat Frio.
Excellent question. I think to start, I would just like to kind of point out that I was raised by a single mother, and at a very early age, I was told that I should start working a job as soon as possible to help save up for post-secondary education. It's been a blessing and a curse working almost full-time hours while going to school. I'm very fortunate in that I've never had to take out an OSAP loan to fund my journey through post-secondary education. And it's been quite a journey. As a matter of fact, in my first year of university, when the Ford government first took power, it was the ever elusive Dr. Fullerton who actually made a bunch of cuts to OSAP, and including the tuition grace period for post-secondary students. And it was so stressful for so many of my friends who at the time were graduating university. So I think for post-secondary students, I will fight to implement the Green Plan to invest funding for first-year tuition jobs that help transition Ontario's economy into a green economy. I believe we should be making the tuition grace period permanent and help reduce the independent student status to 4 years so students can get access to mature student grants in time for their graduate studies. And in Kanata Carleton, we have over 35 public schools in our riding, schools that need investments in infrastructure and in teachers. And it's nice to hear from the NDP and the Liberal candidates about all these investments that they're going to be making in education, but I have no idea how they're going to be paying for these investments. But the Green Party has a plan to invest in education. We would start by eliminating EQAO testing to help save our students stress and to help save the province $30 million annually, which can be reinvested back into schools to help prepare them and to hire teachers. I'm also committed to continue the conversation around how a public Catholic school board merger will look like. As a graduate of the Catholic school system, I was very aware of the disparities between the Catholic and the public school system. I had a lot of friends that went to public school, and they were always surprised at the programs that were available in Catholic schools that were not available in public schools. And that's just so wrong. Like, we shouldn't have this kind of education inequality in Ontario. So that's why I think this school board merger is really important. But I think timing for a proposal like this is also very important. I think this merger needs to absolutely happen with public consultation, but it shouldn't happen right away. I don't think, I'm not going to pull a notwithstanding clause and merge the school boards like what Doug Ford did with Toronto City Council. Like, we really need to talk to parents as to how this deal is going to happen and happen in the next maybe half decade, because right now students aren't ready for a merger like this. They've been through tremendous stress with COVID-19. But the important thing about this merger is that we'll be saving a lot of money through duplicated administrative costs that we can reinvest back into education.
Thank you. That concludes our question period session, and thank you to all the candidates for your thoughtful responses. We now proceed to the concluding remarks, and each candidate will have 3 minutes to do a summation, and we will begin with Shahbaz Syed. You have 3 minutes.
I would like to start with thanking the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak with our respected community members, and for the participants for tuning in and listening to almost 1 hour and 20 minutes so far of the political dialogue that we had. So thank you very much, each one of you. As we draw closer to election, we are 9 days away from election. I think we have a clear choice. Number one, do we want to go back to the years of cuts, confusion, and neglect, or we go to we favor a platform which may be a good plan but without costing, or we go to a plan which is extensive, which has come into effect with extensive consultations, and which is fully costed. So I leave it to the respected and learned audience to make their calculated and informed decision to which party or which candidate will be serving them better in the next 4 years as your representative. I would like to just highlight quickly again some of the key features that Ontario Liberals are promising in our platform. We are, as I said, it's a caring platform for our elders. It's a caring platform for our healthcare workers. It's a caring platform for our education sector and for our environment. And I would like to assure that the key priorities will include from our side protection of our green space and commitment to have extension of the LRT going to Kanata and hopefully in future connecting LRT with our technology park. And finally, I think it is also important that when we look at the options to vote, it was interesting actually, when I was hearing Melissa or Pat, I really enjoy hearing them. Very good points that they make. And I was, it was just like, discussing between the colleagues because we have so much in common. Of course, there are some subtle differences as well, and there are major differences in terms of some policy measures, and especially on the financing and the costing side. But we are all progressive voters. We did not, unfortunately, were unable to hear from Dr. Fullerton, so that we could have drawn a comparison between the progressive votes and, more on the conservative side. But I think the voters have to make that decision, making sure that they support a party which has the best chance to form government come June. And this is the time to make that choice. And I guess, and I request everyone to consider me and Ontario Liberal Party for their support. And I can at least commit on my part that I will remain available and accessible and will work to my fullest ability to make sure that the demands of our residents, demand concerns and issues of our residents are taken to the place where it matters, and that is Queen Park. So choice is yours, and I look forward to getting your support. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Pat Friel.
Thank you very much for the chance to speak with your community today. To conclude, I would just like to say that as a student of economics, I can see that what the Ontario PCs have planned for this province is not sustainable, and it underestimates the potential of the Ontario people and the Ontario economy. The Liberal and PC parties are responsible for the mess that we're in, and the NDP has failed to deliver any results as the official opposition. I just have to look to British Columbia, where the BC NDP government has done absolutely nothing to address the concerns around the unsustainable development of the old growth rainforests. The NDP brand cannot be trusted to act on the environment. And I find it rich that Mr. Said is sitting here today talking to us about how he cares about the environment, but is drinking water from a plastic water bottle. All the other party leaders have indicated that they're willing to work with Mike Schreiner and the Ontario Greens. We're ready to work on a plan that invests in healthcare, housing, and fights climate change so we can all live in a future where we thrive. We have been too slow to act towards a move to a cleaner, safer, and healthier environment for all Ontarians. It's time to stop playing games. As a Green candidate, I'm proud to be guided by principles that demonstrate respect for science, the natural world, and each other. I'm inspired by Mike Schreiner's knowledge on the issues facing this province and the conviction with which he speaks on reaching sustainable solutions that are fair for everyone. This election, support me as your Green MPP so I can get to work delivering real solutions to our communities. Kanata Carleton, let's get real. Vote Pat Friel.
Thank you. Melissa Conrad.
Thank you. Since 2018, we've seen the Ford government cuts to public health care, education, and social services that only now, amidst an election, they propose to reverse. They don't deserve re-election. The NDP only needs 10 more seats to form government. We can form government and defeat the Ford Conservatives. I want to leave you with these three things today. An NDP government will reverse the Ford government cuts to healthcare and education. We will invest in public home care and make long-term care public, not for profit. As MPP for Kanata Carleton, I will work to obtain a ministerial zoning order and keep the Kanata North Golf Course a green space as it was originally intended. The NDP understands that if we invest in Ontarians today, we will have a thriving Ontario tomorrow. On June 2nd, vote for the only alternative in Kanata Carleton that can defeat the Ford government and form government. Vote Melissa Conrad and the NDP.
Thank you. And that concludes our provincial election debate session for Kanata Carleton this evening. I'd like to once again sincerely thank each of the candidates for your time. Pat Friel, Melissa Conrad, Shabazz Syed, and your thoughtful responses. We wish you all the best in your campaign leading up to the election. I'd also like to thank Neil Thompson, our dependable timekeeper from Kanata Beaverbrook Community Association, for supporting us, and to all the Community Association representatives who made this evening possible, and of course to our viewers. For those who are not able to join, we will be posting this session online within the next 48 hours. I'm Chris Browell with the Kanata Lakes Community Association, and I wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.